Hi everyone, my name is Victor and I am one of the authors of Technique.com. Today we're going to continue with our course and we're going to be looking at the Linux boot process part 2. We're going to be looking at the Linux Bootloader. In part 1 we looked at the step-by-step boot process of the Linux operating system. We looked at what sysv unit, what systemd is. Also we looked at the run target of systemd, and we looked at a lot of things in part 1. And quick one, if you're going to be writing the RHCSA 8 or the SUSE Linux exam or the LFCS exam, you can scroll down to this end of the lesson. So at the end of every lesson there is always a practice question, alright, that you can practice with, or you rather come here and click on the exam practice question. It's very good you practice before you write the exam, and we're going to be updating this website from time to time with practice questions, so it's better for you to subscribe to the YouTube channel or to our newsletter. Alright, so let's talk about the Linux bootloader. As the name implies, a bootloader is a program that starts up or loads the operating system. Okay, so in the time past, the Linux operating system's bootloader was Lilo, which is Linux loader. Alright, Lilo means Linux loader. But as tech evolved, Lilo was replaced with Glob, and the likes of Red Hat 6 used Glob. And as tech evolves again, the Glob was also replaced with Glob 2. Glob 2, which means Grand Unified Bootloader 2, which the likes of Red Hat 7, Red Hat 8 is now using. Alright, and Glob 2 is a powerful bootloader, and it has a boot menu where user can choose which kernel to boot from. I mean to boot with. Alright, and if a user does not choose any one, the bootloader after some time or after some seconds, depending on what you've set, continues to boot to the default operating system. Alright, so when the boot process is going on, at the point where you get to choose the kernel to boot with, this is what you're going to see, just like this that you can see on my screen where my mouse is hovering. Alright, so if you do not choose in the boot menu, if you do not choose the kernel to boot with in the boot menu, it's gonna boot with the default kernel. I remember that sometimes I may have to boot, I will need to boot with the Linux kernel that is different from the default, as a result of the fact that an application after a kernel update refuses to function properly, or the operating system itself begins to misbehave. So as a result, you may boot the system with the old kernel, and the only program that allows you to do this is the bootloader, which can be done from the boot menu. Alright, so let's look at the Glob 2 configuration file. Don't forget that the bootloader we're dealing with here is Glob 2. So let's see the Glob 2 configuration files. Because to make changes to the boot menu or Glob 2, you will have to edit the Glob 2 configuration files, right? And the Glob 2 configuration files is in the part etc. Let me just put hash here. Okay, so it is in the part etc default Glob, okay, and also in the part etc glob.d. Alright, so let's look at the etc glob.d part. So I'm just going to cd here. Okay, I'm going to do ls. So you can see the Glob 2 configuration files in this path. If you're not a Glob expert, or if you don't know what you're doing, do not tamper with the configuration files in this directory. The scripts in this path are very sensitive and I advise you not to touch them. If a user needs to make changes to Glob 2, it is advisable the changes are made in the etc default Glob file, which is the first one I showed to you. Alright, so let's look at this etc default Glob file. Let me just copy and paste here. This is going to be /etc. Okay, so you can see the parameters in this file. The first line, which is the glob timeout equals 5, indicates that the glob2 timeout in the boot menu would be 5 seconds. Alright, so if a user refuses to select a particular kernel or the operating system to boot with, after 5 seconds, glob2 will start with the default kernel. And if you think that 5 seconds is too short and you need to make changes, just edit the line by changing 5 to your desired time. And another important line in the configuration file is this glob cmd linux line. Alright, this line here. And this parameter is what the kernel uses to boot. So the parameters in here will be passed to the kernel at boot time, and it can also be edited depending on what you want. So for example, if you need to disable the systate of the system, if you need to add the systate parameter in that line, alright, if you also want to remove the Red Hat graphical boot, if you want it to be quiet, you can also do that on this line. Alright, so this is mostly done when it comes to the RHGB quiet line. This is mostly done when you're configuring kdump, but you don't need to know that in this course. Alright, one very important thing you should know is that making changes to these configuration files will not suffice. You would need to rebuild one very important glob2 configuration file after you must have made changes to these configuration files here. Alright, and that file is the glob.cfg. The glob.cfg. Alright, this file, it's a very important file that you need to rebuild once you make changes to the glob2 configuration files here. Alright, when we get to the managing Linux kernel chapter, we're going to update a Linux kernel, and you're going to see how we're going to rebuild this configuration file. But one thing I want you to know is that you should always back up the configuration file before rebuilding it. Alright, it is very important so that if anything goes wrong, you can always revert back to the configuration file. And this configuration file here, the full part is etc glob.cfg. Alright, let me just cut this file so you can see here. Sorry, glob2, not glob. Oh, my bad. So glob2.cfg. Okay, so this file is a symlink to boot. Is a symlink. We've talked about symbolic link in one of the videos, so I shouldn't be discussing that here. Alright, so it's a symlink to this file, glob.cfg. Let's just cut this file so I can be sure of the file. Alright, so you can see that they are the same thing. Alright, so it's a symlink to this file. Okay, and this file knows how to auto generate itself. Alright, especially when a new kernel is installed or upgraded. Sorry. Okay, so to rebuild the glob configuration file, you use this command to rebuild, or you use this command. Okay, or you use this command. Alright, so this is going to make more sense in the managing the Linux kernel chapter. Okay, so what I'm going to do in that chapter is that I'm going to upgrade a Linux kernel, and I'm also going to, after upgrading the Linux kernel, then I'm also going to rebuild the configuration, the glob2 configuration file. Alright, so thank you for watching, and please subscribe to this channel. Bye for now.